Well, Niti, always a pleasure to see you. For those people that don't know too much about you, I just found out 5 minutes ago that you are not in college. You are a senior in high school, which blows my mind even more of, where you are, your story. So can you give the people a little bit of a background of, your social media, uh, phenomenal, transcend, I don't even know what to call it. You're just killing it on social, Twitter, Instagram. Um, Give us a little bit of a backstory about how you started.
Yeah, definitely. So I started when I was 14 years old. I was selling candy in school, and the reason I started was because I could no longer sell candy in school because I was going into high school, and the summer came, and I was 14 years old, and I was like, how do I make money online? So I went online, looked up how to make money online, and the first thing that would come up is like surveys and like, making money through surveys, like getting a couple pennies every survey you complete. And I would do that. I think I made a total of like $70 up to this day. But I got so like fed up with it that I got to a point where I was like, one day I'm gonna build a business, because I would see other like teenagers in the space. There was this one teenager in specific. He's not out there, but I said one day I'm going to build a business online where I don't have to go penny pinching on these surveys. And ever since then, that was like a motivating factor. But yeah, I went from selling candy in like eighth grade. I was 14 years old, started looking online, being curious, going on YouTube, how to make money online. You see all these e-commerce, drop shipping, agency, so much stuff all at once that I was like, I don't know where I'm going to do all this. Let me just start a social media. So I started social media and I started posting since 2019. And ever since then, I never just stopped posting. The thing is with me, I always believe that if you just be consistent, even if you don't know what you're doing, eventually you will, and eventually you'll start finding some sort of success. So that's what I did.
I love it. So when you were 14, okay, hearing this story, love it. Right now, were your friends at the time? Are you guys like all, I don't know, like mean girl chicks, but like you're all like sitting there like entrepreneur, like, yeah, we want to do this, or where, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think like 14-year-olds, I mean, let alone, the drive that you have, not many people 45, 35, 25 can figure this out. So what made you think at like 14, you're like, yo, I can do this. I'm going to hop on the internet. Did your friends think this way too, or?
So well, when it comes to my friends first, like I feel like none of them actually like realize the power of the internet. I didn't realize the power of the internet either until I started actually doing this stuff. But first, I'll give you like a picture of how like my friend's situation and everything. So the reason I started selling candy is actually, this brings up a funny story. This girl was selling candy in school, and I was like, I got attracted to the idea of selling candy, and I was like, she's selling candy, I want to sell something too. And so what I did was I went up to her and I was like, I have an idea on how you can sell way more candy by partnering with me and this, that, and the third. And I was like, if you do X, Y, and Z, you can get way more sales. We can, expand this to the whole grade, to the whole
What was
school.
X, Y, and Z? What was X, Y,
X, Y,
and
and
Z?
Z was like, I literally went home and I wrote on my whiteboard. I have like this little whiteboard, and I wrote down like what type of candy she could buy, how many like candies she could get. And like, currently I knew what type of candy she was selling and all the like the numbers and intricacies to it. If I were to come in, how I could like invest my own money to it, because I had I had some money from like
I want a
birthday.
franchise. I want to franchise your little candy
Yeah.
business here. She's like, yeah, great. This girl's awesome.
Yeah, no, she was actually like, she's like, I think she said, I'll think about it, or she said no. So I was like, you know what? The thing about me is when I get rejected, I don't take it personal, but I use it as like huge motivation. And I was like, you know what? And I partnered up with one of my friends. It was like, I was valedictorian of the eighth grade, and it was my friend who was salutatorian. And we ended up partnering, and we ended up creating a candy business and took over the other girl's candy business. And I tell this story all the time. Like we ended up taking it over. And so that's what happened. But then I started like moving on my own, not with the other girl that I was selling with. my friends, they supported here and there. They didn't know, like anyone probably didn't know that, it would be to a point where it is now. I still have kids reach out to me, like friends who I knew since middle school, be like, wow, you really like did something for yourself. Like, that's so crazy, whatever. But yeah, that's in terms of my friend situation, that's that. But like the driving factor for me, sorry, the driving
All good.
factor for me is that I say that I always was an ambitious person. Like when it comes to school, I always did well too because my parents are immigrants. So, when it comes to like immigrant parents, they always push you to do really well in school and, get a good job and good degree. So I always had it in me. Effort and work ethic, like always was in me from schooling. So I always thought I can do anything I put my mind to. So from there, I said, why can't I build a business? Why can't I do this just like everyone else?
Where are your parents from?
My mom is from India and my dad is from Guyana.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so I live abroad in Thailand, and maybe it's similar to the culture that they always want their children to be doctors, lawyers, teachers,
Hmm.
engineers, and I think there's another one, but like that's how it is in Thailand. It's like if you're one of those five, you've made it. If you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm a YouTube star, or I make money on Twitter, or I have an agency, they're like, yeah, but are you a teacher? It's like, no, I make more than a teacher. Okay, interesting. So yeah, it's very cool. And so what platform did you decide to pick first when you decided to jump into the social media game and you're like, okay, I could do this. You got the attitude, you got the mindset. You've had a little experience as an entrepreneur with your side hustles. And then now what platform did you decide to choose first?
I decided to choose LinkedIn and Instagram. And the reason I chose LinkedIn was because I had a teacher who told me, she was like, you should get on LinkedIn way before she knew way before I grew any sort of social media. Before I got on anything, she was like, do LinkedIn because she's a teacher and, any teacher is going to recommend you to start a LinkedIn profile so you can get like jobs or anything like that. So she was like,
Mhm.
start a LinkedIn. So I started a LinkedIn and I started an Instagram at the same time, but I never had social media prior.
So when you started LinkedIn, so what was your strategy going into LinkedIn? I mean, at this point, you're still probably 16 years old. Like your LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile is like, I go to John Adams High School. It's like, cool, awesome. Wow, let's be friends with this girl. Sweet, solid. All right. Like, what was
Yeah.
your strategy going into there?
I had no strategy. I was 14 years old and I had no strategy. I just got into it and I started I remember I never even took photos of myself that I could put as a profile picture. And I literally there's this local photographer. I live in a little city, like it's a cute little city. And there's a little local photographer. And so I went to him and he ended up taking a professional photo of me. I don't use that photo anymore because I was literally such a
You're
child.
14. Yeah. You
And
hit
then
puberty.
I
You changed. Yeah.
yeah. And then I ended up using that photo as my profile picture. And from there, I literally, what would I do? I would just write, like, I would read a lot of self-help and business books because I got into
Uh-huh.
that. Also, that's another story. I got into that because my dad, he's a manager at a hospital.
Hmm.
And so, what his boss gives him like self-development and self-help books sometimes, so he don't want to read them. So sometimes he'll hand them off to me and he'll be like, here, you just read it or tell me what it's about so I can tell my boss I read it. And so I would get really into it. Like in the eighth grade, like I started like really reading these things, like self-help books and stuff. And so I used the information that I would like generally create like as a mindset, those
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah.
general mindset, I guess,
They're like
mental
your
frame.
mentors in a sense.
Yeah.
The book.
And I
Yeah.
would just like create LinkedIn posts about it
Wow.
here and there.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And then so you wound up starting an agency, correct?
Yes, I did. That was that was my initial goal because I got into that. I like the agency business model overall since I started because my first mentor that I started learning from was Iman Gaji and I found him on YouTube and I started
Mm.
seeing that he was so young. I heard his story and the thing about transparent mentors is that they're going to tell their story, the good and the bad, so you feel like you relate and you feel like that's also another thing that I said, if this person has gone from from such a bad place to such a good place, I can do the same thing. And so I like the agency business model since, and I ended up getting his course early on. And then from there, I just created content until I started finding clients and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then how did you go about finding your first client?
So, okay, so this is a great story. So what ended up happening was for the first like what, a year, I was working for free for people. Like I would literally like my whole social media thing, I made probably pennies, like just the surveys I was making money off of, and
You're
also
still doing the surveys at this point?
the, it was the beginning, even at like 2019 to early 2020, when I wasn't
Okay.
making any money, then I was doing surveys. I don't do surveys no more.
I feel like
But
you like the surveys. Surveys of collected pennies. Like you can recycle bottles where you live and make more money per can than probably the survey.
it was something, you know?
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was so as I was growing my social media, obviously I would like get DMs and talk to people and like get a bunch of people that I started to get to know. And I was like reaching out to people, and people ended up asking, you know, how are you growing your own platform? How can I do this? How can I do X, Y, and Z? So then like X, Y, and Z, as in like how to grow your Instagram, how to create content like this, how to use Canva. So then I was like, I'm getting so many questions, but I ended up helping people for free. So what I would do is say, okay, you can book a call with me. And I guess helping people for free wasn't 100% intentional because I didn't have sales skills. So I would say we can get on a call and use it as a discovery call, but I wouldn't end up closing them or even having the confidence to pitch them. So I would just help them for free on the entire call because I would be so scared. So
Yeah.
that's what happened for an entire year. I helped people for free, just got on calls with them, discovery calls. I always have a little notebook with me like this.
Uh-huh.
And then I just wrote out like a strategy for them and told them for free, ended up getting testimonials, building a network, building people who I can always say, yeah, I could point to them if someone else was like, why are you charging this? Point to this person and say, this person knows, I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, to the point is that one day this lady I was helping for free, I helped her December or 2019. She ended up reaching back out. I would always help her for free whenever she needed. I was genuinely wanted to see her like succeed because I ended up building like a good connection with her, and I ended up finding out what her goals are and everything like that. I still know her to this day. Fast forward around 8 months, August 2020, she's like, Nitty, what's your PayPal? And then I was like, I was like, why is she asking for my PayPal? And I sent her my PayPal link, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna be sent money. Maybe it's like $25. I'm very excited. But
Woo, better than survey, buddy. Send that right over. You mean my LinkedIn account? What do you need here? Yeah, okay, cool.
yeah. And then she ends up sending $500, and that blew my mind. Because like at the time I only had like $300 to my name, so like nearly doubling my bank account. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then seeing it in my bank like $800, I'm like, I'm 200 from 1,000, and then 1,000, that's my first 1,000. Then I can make it 10,000. Once I started seeing these numbers, it started becoming real to me. And so that lady has changed my life ever since. I tell this story all the time. And I told her I tell this story on podcasts all the time, is that she changed my life. She sent me that 500. She said, I believe in you. She said, you can charge. That's from there. I started believing that I could charge my worth and that what I'm providing is real and true and that it's helping people. So from there, I never, obviously I give value for free, but I'm not going to, do what I did. But yeah, that's how I did it.
That's awesome. What was her profession, or what were you helping her with?
Yeah, so her profession, I forget the exact like her exact timeline of like a job or something like that. But I think she is working a job currently, or she's not working a job currently, but she was working a job, but she's trying to build something online where it's kind of like a wellness. This was in the past. She was trying to build like this wellness course or like something like that. So I was guiding her, helping her. I always had like a little bit better, I guess, like I was very informed on how to build digital products and how to do things like that. Cause I would like get a bunch of people trying to sell me their course on YouTube and study their funnels. And I literally have a notebook for each year of me studying like a bunch of different things. And so that year I was studying a lot of digital products, funnels and stuff like that, and like how to get people to buy higher ticket products from you and stuff like that. So I ended up teaching her how to do that and like different platforms she can use, stuff like that. Also a specific like Instagram strategy she can use to grow her platform at that time. Now she's pivoted more towards YouTube and she's trying to just create something that's more resonating with her in terms of like spirituality, wellness, health. That's the kind of niche she's in.
Very cool. Awesome. So when do you graduate? You graduate what year? Was December? You just graduate in 6 months? Is that right?
Yeah, 2023. Yeah, June.
Okay, Jesus Christ. I don't even want to tell you my age. I'm a little older than you. So, okay, so you hear like, Gary Vee, everybody's starting to question, going to college, going to university, chase what you love, yada, yada. Where do you stand in this camp? So are you kind of like, yeah, get my high school diploma and deuces, and now I'm going to be a full-blown internet entrepreneur? Or are you like, no, I still want to go to school and pursue nursing with doing this on the side?
Yeah, so I actually love this question. I love talking about this kind of thing because it's like, I tweeted about this the other day, and it's like, if you tell people you're going to go to college, you're going to have criticism, and people are going to say you're wasting money, you're wasting time, whatever. But if you tell them you're not going to college, you're going to get some people also giving you criticism and be like, you're going to end up on the streets. You're going to be broke. You're not going to make it. So either way, you're getting criticism. And the thing is like, in the beginning, when I found out about this whole online social media space, I guess my brain wasn't fully developed because obviously you don't like take everything into account as a child. You know what I mean? Like 14, 15, 16, you might not make the best decisions. So in my mind, I thought I don't want to go to college. For the longest time, I was like, I don't want to go to college. But I noticed that I was so anxious whenever I thought that, because I would think that I'm on a time limit, and that I have 4 years to do, what it is to set me up for life, which is not where I want to be, like in my mental state. So for the longest time, I was like, I'm not going to college. There's no purpose in me going to college. I don't see why college would benefit me. But then I started to actually like sit down and think like Nitty, like actually think about what you're doing and actually think both sides. Don't just think that you don't have to go to college. And so I remember September 2021. It was just recent, September 2021. Yeah, 1 year ago. I went to my aunt's house, and my aunt, she's very successful. Her and her husband and their family, they're very successful people, and they're very wealthy, and they have, they're educated. They have their like masters in business and everything like that. But I rarely go to their house, but when I do, I really have a great time and I enjoy myself. But what I ended up having a conversation with her, and she's like, what colleges are you looking into? And at that time I wasn't looking into any colleges because I didn't want to go to college. And she ended up having a conversation with me, and she's like talking to me about all the networking benefits. And I really started getting in the moment and thinking about, okay, this lady is very successful and she's giving you advice, and other people are very successful and they'll give you advice not to go to college. Now you need to think for yourself and think which is best for you. And so give it like another month, maybe October, November time, I decided to myself that, hey, I actually do want to consider going to college. And the reason is because it's not just the general networking and stuff like that, but I feel like I could use it. I could definitely use the degree that I get. And I feel like it would be a smart move for me just because of the way I've always been brought up, is that I enjoy going to school. Not that I enjoy homework and sitting in class and like taking notes and stuff like that, but just the lifestyle of schooling. Like I would go through I can't see myself just finishing this June and never going to school again. I still feel like I could be educated more. I have, I guess you could use the word humility to, understand that I could learn more, even, go to college for, I think I'm going to go to college for something in business, obviously. But also I have the grades to probably get a full ride scholarship and do really well. So if I don't have to spend that much money, I might as well go. So that was a long way of saying that I do think I'm going to go to college. So yeah.
I got you. So you're thinking business, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking business.
Okay, very cool. And then where do you see, as far as like the future moving out, as far as like the digital front? Do you think you want to continue with your agency? Do you want to, sell bigger courses? Do you want to build out your YouTube? What do you want to do as far as like moving forward on the digital front?
Yeah, so as I'm in college, and within the next, so right now, I guess like I could tell you, yeah, so for the digital front, I'm just going to continue building my brand. I'm not going to stop that. My brand is my brand. I'm going to continue building it, putting content out, even if I took a long break on Instagram, that doesn't mean I'm forever gone. And I'm always going to be out there putting content out. And also I am releasing a product soon. So I think it's going to be this month. But I am releasing a new digital product soon. It's going to be this community. It's going to be a new course. It's going to be everything all in one. The biggest thing I've ever released, pretty much. Besides my coaching that I released earlier this year. But besides that, I'm going to continue the agencies, continue providing services, agency services, building up my YouTube, all of it all at once, and just scaling my content and my brand forward that way.
What's the biggest challenge that you find right now with where you're at in social media?
What's the biggest challenge? Okay, so I think it comes down to, the first thing I could think of is, you know how I'm creating more reels and video content now, and just because I've gotten really comfortable in front of the camera, and it's quite easier for me now. The biggest challenge is finding the time to actually sit down and record. Like it is, because like I'll be at school, and by the time I come home, my hair is like a mess, and my God, I just want to sit, relax, finish my homework, do some other stuff, and so I don't want to record on school days, and that's kind of like the difficult thing for me. So what I do is, like, on a Saturday or Sunday, right after I take like a nice shower, I'll go stand in my little corner and record the reels I need to record with the scripts I have and everything like that. I think that's the biggest challenge, because that's what I can think of right now. I think it's just comes down to time. I think it comes down to time, and also maybe for other people as well, but myself included, is being able to brainstorm the right like content ideas that will do well. Like some people.
Yeah, you had $1 million, or not $1 million.
$1 million.
1 million. Yeah, you got $1 million from a reel. That's awesome. No, 1 million views on a reel. So that's crazy. That's awesome.
Insane. It's insane. I didn't expect it. I posted it earlier in October, and then 3 weeks later it starts blowing up. I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, that literally blowing up, right? So let me ask you, so when you created that, sometimes, when you're creating content, right, you're like, all right, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to throw this away. Like, I got this idea, it pops in my head. You throw it out there, and like, it's usually like your best idea. And you're like, wow, the other ones that I spent hours trying to curate did nothing. So for this particular one, you're kind of telling your story. You hold up a MacBook for people that haven't seen it, and then you kind of just give a little bit of a timeline, right? So did you put a lot of thought into this one, or what did you think of that reel?
So I didn't put too much thought into it, but I think what it comes down to is, well, obviously some thought was put into it, but it's not like me sitting for 5 hours, writing up a script. But it's like, what I think it comes down to is laying out everything. And I love doing it on paper. I will never stop. These little notebooks, I love them. I love them so much. And you just like write down everything on paper that you want to tell your story about. What is your positioning? Like, what have you been able to do? Where can people relate to you? And what I always use is like my $250 Chromebook. People can relate. They don't have the most expensive MacBook or whatever. So I put $250 Chromebook. I have immigrant parents. I wasn't raised in the most wealthiest family. I literally grew up in a condo with 6 people living in it. Like, that was not the healthiest thing. And just, I remember, like, I didn't live the most normal childhood. And I don't tell my childhood too much on social media just because it's personal, but just more stuff that show that like I've gone from X to Y, and it's like this transformation in between, and be able to tell that transformation in between. So being able to tell your audience, be vulnerable with your audience, be transparent with your audience, and be authentic with your audience, and say, this is where I've been able to come from, and this is where I've been able to be, but here's how I did it, and not leaving anything out, and telling your full story and patching everything up. That's really what helps. And I think it just comes down to that. And more technical and more practical when it comes to social media, being able to write scripts that are going to do well, being able to, write threads that are going to do well on Twitter even, or write, reels that are going to do well. It just comes down to trial and error, but also it comes down to studying what other creators are doing. So what I like to do, especially for like Twitter threads, is study like, how are other people, what are their hooks look like? How can I mimic their hooks? Maybe not copy 100%, right? That's not right, but don't reinvent the wheel. Things already work, you might as well do it. How do people structure their, real script? How do people structure their Twitter threads? And I just like to study and go through it, and then write my own headlines, and then follow through with, the content itself. So that's more practical.
And who are you enjoying learning from at the moment, or who do you see in the social media space right now that you're studying, or somebody that you really like or idolize?
So I guess I would say I have a bunch of people who I really look up to. Let me see. I'm on my phone right now.
There you go. It's not unprofessional. It's okay.
Nah, yeah. No, because like I follow a bunch of people, and it's just like mindless. Maybe I'll look on social media and stuff. There's not one particular person that I'm like 100% where I'm like watching their podcast every single day. But I can tell you the
Yep.
first person that really got me into like this online money Twitter space was either Jose Rosado and or Dan Coe. It was those two. Like if it
Jose is
weren't for those
amazing.
two, yeah, they're
His stuff
both
is
amazing.
bananas. Like his you read his threads, or even on like on Instagram, and it's like, DM me Wi-Fi and I'll give you $1,000. Like, yeah, okay, Wi-Fi. Like next post, you're like, okay, DM you this, I'll DM you that. Like, oh my god, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he's
great.
great. He's great. I that's how I got into it, and I remember seeing his profile, so I followed him, and then I started learning from him, and then Dan Coe, because Dan is like, I also love Dan's content. The way he just articulates, I will never stop preaching him for that. He knows this. Like I'll send him a video of me talking about him on a podcast and be like, I literally talked about how well you articulated, and he
Mm.
articulates so well. He teaches so well. It's incredible. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, right?
it's interesting because like with Dan, right? Because that's how I got introduced to you, and
Hmm.
then uh like Dan, you'll like when I'm reading his stuff, I'm like, this guy is like a philosopher. Oops,
Right,
sorry,
right.
hang on, I can't return. Yeah, so Dan's like, yeah, like I'm like, Dan's like a philosopher, and then you like listen to Dan, he's like, like I'm into philosophy, but like I'm not a philosopher, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I feel like you're Socrates over here, like I'm like,
Yeah.
holy cow, like I don't even know if I can relate to this in depth of knowledge you have. Like I go on a walk and I'm like, Bird. Dad comes back from a walk with like 100 Twitter threads. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Very, very, very in depth. So people that are listening to this, that are they're feeling inspired about your journey, and they're learning, to document the process going from X to Z, the transition, transformation, everything. So what do you recommend to somebody that's new, that's starting out on personal branding, starting to go down the digital economy path?
Yeah, so I would suggest just trying different things and building something on the side, not just building a personal brand where you're just posting random stuff like I was back in 2019, but something where you're actually building something, let's say an agency or an e-commerce store or some sort of business on the side so that you can document the process on your social media, which will help you blow up even quicker than just talking about random philosophy, self-help stuff. You know what I mean? Like build something and then use social media to just document the process, and then you'll attract a bunch of people who are actually interested in learning from you, and then you've built an authority for yourself. So if I knew something like that, I would have been building something cooler from the start.